welcome back to the second episode of my attempt of converting a Fed 1 camera to sort of a Leica 1 clone. It's been literally a couple of months since I filmed the first episode, and I'm way too lazy to rewatch it and see where I left off. But in the meantime, well, actually, last time I had black repainted top plate that was all wobbly and sketchy, but it had closed holes and it had new holes drilled. So after a lot of thinking, well, literally months of thinking, I decided I might as well try to salvage that one. It would be, on one hand, easier than to just transform another one, and on the other hand, I really had this fear of not getting the holes properly. So eventually my plan was to, okay, let me make sort of a plate out of, I don't know, plastics or something, that I could actually screw on top of that black plate or top plate in a couple of common points, common between the original one and the one that I need to have, and then trace the correct holes, the new holes, and close the other ones. And basically I would have had a template to drill the new holes. And in order to do that, I decided the best first step would be to actually strip the black paint and move on from there. So I soaked it in acetone. I actually forgot about it in acetone overnight, only to discover the next day that the paint was still on the plate, and that got me very baffled. The top coat, so the clear coat, was a mess. So it got dissolved, it lifted from the rest of the top plate, and that was easily removed. But the actual bottom layer of paint was pretty much untouched by the acetone. I have no idea why. Granted, it was kind of a leftover, an acetone leftover that I used to wash lots and lots of painted parts, but I don't know, it was still acetone. Anyway, so next step was to actually sandblast it, and even sandblasting was surprisingly difficult for your run-of-the-mill spray can. Apparently that was a very sturdy paint. Anyway, this is that top plate. So after stripping the paint and sandblasting it, next step was to actually straighten it, because it was full of dents and wobbles, and it wasn't even straight. It was kind of crooked, like somebody tried to bend it. So I think I did a fairly good job of straightening it, and I used larger piece of wood that I adapted, meaning that I had to drill one hole, two holes, and a third very small hole, because these are the raised parts. And then I laid it like this and used another piece of wood to actually slowly hammer it straight. So now it is fairly straight. I mean, it's as straight as it gets, I suppose, and it should fit nicely. It has no balance, there are no gaps, almost. a bit of a gap here. So there are some small aspects that I still need to fix, but keep in mind there is no leatherette on top of this, so the leatherette will actually fill this difference in height, which is approximately 0.7 millimeters. I think at least that's 0.7 or 0.8. This is 0.5, but the leatherette is a bit thicker than that. So any kind of imperfection should be masked by the actual leatherette. But for good measure, I will note the areas where it doesn't fit as good as it should. Maybe here, but this part is straight, so that makes me think that there is a dent here. Yeah, everything is very soft. So this is aluminium, is very soft. This is brass, is very soft. For some of the adjustments, you can simply use your hands in sort of a controlled manner. So this part is a bit too on the outside, so it's protruding. Better, but not ideal yet. And also, for instance, let me get it straight. There is a very slight gap between the top plate and the body shell in this area. There's a screw here that will keep it pressed down, and there is the lens mount that will cover it, so I'm not really worried about that. Otherwise, it seems pretty decent. So this is the top plate, and this is the bottom plate, also sandblasted. Now before the repaint, I will, let me rephrase. Normally, because I'm a lazy guy, I would simply repaint all the parts and then start the reassembly procedures. But what if they don't fit? And this was one of the main reasons why I decided to actually keep this one, because for instance, I was working on a Zorky 4K the other day, and it had shutter problems, and initially I decided I would replace the shutter entirely. I had this shutter from a Zorky 3. It has good curtains, good ribbons, everything is okay. It was opened, it was cleaned, it was re-lubricated. It does not match. The mounting holes, they don't match with the top plate of that Zorky 4K, and I can't swap I couldn't swap the top plate because I didn't have a spare 4K Zorky 4K plate. It's a bit different from the regular Zorky 4. So eventually I had to replace a whole other bunch of parts just to make it work. I had to replace the shutter speed selector disc, the coupling gears. I had to make some particular adjustments just to make them fit, because that's the problem with these cameras. Just because you have a bunch of spare parts, it does not mean those parts will fit. Most of them, they were kind of mass produced, but in a very Soviet kind of way. Meaning, on one hand, they were mass produced, meaning that the parts were mass produced, but on the other hand, they kind of adjusted all the parts to fit for the specific camera they were working on. Something like what Leica would have done back in the day, but at a totally different quality level much lower, obviously. So yeah, that's why I decided to keep this top plate. So in order to make sure that everything that I've got here, given the fact that I got the camera in like bags of parts, so that everything fits and works, I decided to actually reassemble the camera in this state, test it out, make sure it works, and then disassemble it again back to bare bones, repaint the parts, and then reassemble it. It will take longer, but it might actually save me from a lot of grief. The only part that I'm not really excited about putting it back and off and back again is this one. I need to strip these paint remnants from it anyway, because this is pressed together, so I need to press it back, then open it up again, and then press it back again. And my fear is that it will get a bit wobbly. In case it does, I will probably try to lock the two parts with some UV resin. Just very, very minute trace of UV resin, just to keep them in one piece. This I probably showed you the last time, the box of parts. These are all the parts that I need to repaint. I'm considering repainting this, so the cold shoe, with some black powder coat. It might look a bit different, but at least it will be strong enough to hopefully to not lose the paint every time something is inserted in this cold shoe, and that something would be an external viewfinder that might be put on and left on, or might be put on and taken off, and so on. All right, everything else should be okay, and I think that's the only these are the only parts that I need to repaint, which is okay. Maybe some screws, although I do have some already black painted screws. I'll decide if I'll repaint them or not. I might actually repaint the screws with powder coat when I do this one, just because you know, using a screwdriver on these painted screws is almost guaranteed to chip the paint. At least if the paint is not fully cured. And that brings me back to what kind of paint am I going to use. This thing is a bit wobbly. I need to see if I can actually, I think I can repunch it. So it has a lip here, because this is made of, actually it's also brass, weirdly. Yeah, and I think I need to maybe use a socket or something on top and just apply a couple of good old hammers to press the lip against the plate a bit more. Anyway, so paint. I am not going to use a primer. The original repainted black paint was applied directly over the brass parts, and it was perfectly okay. I could not find a primer that would fit the purpose. Now the purpose is to obtain a camera that looks as close as possible to the original Leica finish, that would brass over time, just like an original, not necessarily Leica, but black painted camera would brass. and I don't want to have that layer of primers showing when the black paint starts to brush away or to rub away. And I couldn't find a transparent self-etch primer that I could airbrush. The only one that I found at some point was for enamel paint from Tamiya. Now, enamel paint is one thing, lacquer paint is something else. They don't match, so I had no other choice. The only primers that I found, mostly in rattle cans, are gray, and the all the charm that a black camera that's brassing has is that brass showing strongly through the rubbed paint with no gray intermediate layer, if that makes sense. Okay, so after chatting with my good pal ChatGPT, I decided to go, probably there are better options, but I decided to go for Mr. Paint, Mr. Hobby. Actually, Mr. Hobby I think is the line of paints and Mr. Paint is the producer, something like that, or they changed the labels, something. It's Mr. Paint C line of paints, which stands for lacquers, and I have C2, which is gloss black, and it says primary. Okay, and ChatGPT recommended a bit of recipe, so not pure black, but a recipe that would mimic that original Leica paint from the 30s, which had a slight wormish undertone or something. But as we all know, probably, and if we don't, we should know about ChatGPT. It's not always giving you the same results or answers to questions. It's not always giving you the correct answers, and well, obviously it's picking up information from here and there. So I got multiple variations of this recipe over a period of time, a period of me asking ChatGPT about it, and I ordered what I was recommended at a certain point in time. And today when I asked it again, it kind of changed the recipe, but it's a very small or minute difference. I'll use what I have. So this is black and this is tire black, which is kind of a gray, a sort of dark gray. Actually, it should be this. The second recipe gave me something like more brownish. The idea is that the recipe is intended to cut away just a bit from the shine of a black gloss paint. So the ratio is 10:1. 10 milliliters of this, which in this case means a full jar, because this jar has 10 milliliters, if I remember correctly. Yes, 10 milliliters. 10 milliliters of pure black and 1 of this tire black. Also, ChatGPT, the last time I asked him, said that I should also add a bit of lacquer in the mix, which I'm going to analyze a bit more, because I was under the impression the lacquer comes later, but anyhow. This is super clear gloss GX100. There are a couple of different lacquers from oh no, Mr. Hobby is the manufacturer and Mr. Color is the line. Yeah. Anyway, this is what I'm going to use, and I still need something for the markings, so for the numbers and so on. And I'm not really sure, but I think I'm going to use this. This is also lacquer. It's from Hataka, and it's cream. So RAL 9001. Let me see what happens if I shake it. I think it's a combination between this and this. It's been sitting on a shelf for many months, so it's probably not stirred completely. The idea is that back in the day, they didn't use white, so like pure white. They used, I think, a paint based on lead. So it had a bit of a grayish tint to it. Obviously, if you look at the black camera now, you'll probably see the letterings aging. So that grayish aspect is not only the color of the paint, but it's also all the dirt and stuff that got into the grooves. But it was never white from the get-go. And honestly, the combination of, let's say, pure white over black paint looks very not age appropriate to me. So it looks modern, it looks nasty. I would go for something a bit yellowish, and I might need to actually make I don't know, maybe a combination. I have this, and I have medium tan and not brown. And I'll show you in just a second what these two are. So this one is almost empty. This one still has enough in it. Now these are also lacquer paints, but they are not lacquer paints, real lacquer paints. They are lacquer based, and I think they have something else inside. And now I was wondering if I could use like a small drop of not brown in the black instead of this, or maybe a combination. But I need to make sure that this one plays nicely with this one from a chemical standpoint. Okay, so this is my Zorky one. It was custom painted to match the color scheme of my Fantic motorcycle, because I am a bit crazy. Okay, so this is real leather, and this is my sketchy paint job. Many mistakes have been made. These two colors are a bit different. I'm not really sure why. I probably did something wrong at some point, because this color is correct, only this, so this edge is wrong, but it's a bit late now. I really don't want to stress about it. So the nut brown is this one. Now keep in mind, there is a layer, a poorly applied layer, I will give you that, of 4K automotive clear coat, which I kind of sprayed in a too thick manner and looks a bit plasticky. But underneath this is the nut brown, and this is the medium tan. So medium tan and nut brown. Now this is a bit way too much, too yellow for the intended purpose, but if I combine this with this and maybe with a touch of white, although I don't think I have white, lacquer white. I have I only have acrylic, so that's not good, but lots of this with a little bit of this might get me in the correct ballpark. We'll see. I still have a lot of work to do until then. And all of this is for the lettering, right? So in order for me to get something that looks authentic. But this will be the main horse or workhorse, black with a bit of something in it. All right. And another very important aspect when using lacquer paint is giving it enough time to cure, because it takes a lot of time, a very long time to fully cure. Until it's fully cured, it will be soft. I have a virtual friend, a guy from Australia, who painted a Fed 2, I think, or it doesn't matter. He painted a camera. He used Tamiya lacquer paint in the sprayable bottle. They have some spray cans, like smaller spray cans, but it's the same lacquer paint that you can find like in a little jar that you can airbrush. He sprayed his camera, left it on a shelf, and a couple of months later he decided he didn't really like the way the camera turned out and he would strip it and redo it. And he got into the same issue as me. He couldn't strip the paint. Nothing seemed to strip that lacquer paint, which kind of gave me a bit of confidence boost, because this was my main concern, that it would not survive, especially when you need to paint the engravings. If it smudges all around, it's game over. You need to redo the job. But hearing that he really had a hard time stripping the paint kind of motivated me to move along or move ahead. Okay, so this is for now. I will see if I'm going to add another part to this episode or not. Probably I will add a part with the whole camera reassembled in this state, because obviously the reassembly phase is of no interest. You can find all the steps and all my ramblings in other series. And then in the next episode of the series, I will probably show you the painted parts. Most likely I will talk about the process itself. I'm not going to have it on video. I don't have the right equipment and know-how, and I'm way too lazy for that, so it will be all talk and no showy, except for the actual results. And yeah, hopefully things will start to take shape. Okay, so yeah, see you soon. And this is where I am at now. I have well, I have, for one, I have replaced one of the curtains. It was this one, the first curtain, because it had this area where the rubber was almost completely stripped. Obviously that's a light leak. The rest of the curtain was in good shape, but it is what it is. And I used another curtain, another original curtain from basically from one of the spares. Actually, it's not from the spares. Every time I'm replacing the curtains on one of these cameras, if one of the, obviously I'm replacing the curtains because at least one of the two curtains has some issues. But if the other one is in good shape, I'm keeping it, because it's obviously easier to only replace one. And so basically, if one is busted, at least up to a certain point in time, I would have removed and replaced both. But since the other one usually was okay, I kept it. And now I have enough stock, meaning like 5, but that's enough for my workload. I have enough stock to actually replace one of the two curtains, if only one is busted in another camera, with an original one. So excuse me, I'm tired and I'm talking bollocks. And I also have a bit of one of those ribbons. So everything that's here, 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 pieces of original curtain. They are all the second curtain because it's quite long. And on the other side, this one is okay, this one is okay. It has some stripped rubber here, but this is the part that's glued to the big drum. This one is okay, and this one is okay. So they are all more or less okay. They are all okay in this part that's the actual visible part of the shutter curtain. And in case of a shutter that requires only one of them to be replaced, I have this little stock that I can use either for the second curtain or for the first curtain, because that one is smaller, so I can just cut the excess. So yeah, that's what I did. I decided to only replace the first curtain and use one of these original ones instead, because it wouldn't be nice to have one old and one new, because there's a big difference in thickness. So the new one is 0.2 millimeters thick, the old one is 0.27 or something like that. All right, the funny part that I just noticed is the fact that the rubber is pointing towards the lens when it should have pointed towards the back of the camera. That is weird. It has no implication, so it doesn't really matter, but usually in the bottom loaders, the fabric, the silk, should be pointing towards the lens. All right, what else? So I replaced the first curtain. I got to putting back the advanced mechanism. I did not use any kind of lubrication, because obviously I will need to remove them again, and I don't want to contaminate even more the top plate. My point was to make sure it works, and it does. It's a bit rough, but probably due to the aforementioned lubrication. And this is the latch. Okay, I can see that this little part from the second curtain is matching with the cutout in the latch, so that means all the pieces are correctly matching. The only one that I cannot be sure now, and I won't be able to be sure up until the point where I can start adjusting the shutter, is this. So the control disc, the one with the little holes, I can only eyeball it being okay, meaning that this hole, the last one, so actually this row of three closely spaced holes, these are for 125, 250 and 500, or in this case 100, 200 and 500. And when the shutter is cocked, these holes should be pointing towards, like, what's that, 4 o'clock. So this should be the position for 500 of a second, where the distance between the pin, the striker pin, and this shoulder of the ledge is something like, what, 3 millimeters or something. If the distance is too small, you will get a gap that's so faint that it might actually not work. If the distance is larger than this, obviously it will never achieve 500 of a second, and even in this case it might not. Okay, let's set it to, well, for starters, let's set it to B. Okay, so the shutter opens and I can see the edges of the curtains. Well, I can see them, you probably can't, but I will report that this edge is about 2 millimeters behind the edge of the film gate, and this metal edge is, let's say, 1.5. So it's in the right ballpark. That means I'm right now I'm fine with the way the shutter looks. We'll see how it works. And releasing the curtain will release the second curtain, the ledge, releasing the ledge. All right. Now, if I move this to, let's say, 30th of a second, I think, yes, 30th of a second, you should be able to see that some sort of correct-ish shutter speed is happening. Okay, now I can't test the shutter because I do not have the spring that pushes this ledge against, or better said, towards the shaft. I don't have it because I don't have it. I actually do not have that spring. I will have to make it. So I need to make a custom shaped spring that connects to this screw. So it should be something like, this. Right here in the middle of the loop is this screw, and then the tip, no, not the tip, one end, the end. The short end of the spring goes over the screw and then back here, so it kind of gets stuck in between these two screws. And the other end, this one, also needs to be like this, pointed downwards or pointing downwards, and it will catch in this hole and push the ledge that way. That's the theory. Now I'll need to make actually not a drawing. I think I will just use a regular piece of wire to bend it into shape to make the design, and then I will need to actually convert one of the existing springs that I've got in my piles of dead Soviet bits. Let's say Zorky 4 shutter related parts. Zorky 4 is the stock with the most bits and pieces in my collection. So this is the spring from Zorky 4. It's the same ledge spring, and in the Zorky 4 it's something like this. So the mounting point of the spring is here. It has a screw and it mounts on the little plate that holds the secondary ledge, but that's a different story, doesn't matter. So it has a screw here. That little the smaller end is fitting inside a groove that keeps this entire spring in one position, and then the longer end is pulled like this and will engage the hole in the, actually not the hole, it will engage the shutter ledge like this, something like that. Okay, so I will need to I might actually be in luck, because this one is short enough that I could, oh, I think I'm in luck. Yeah, this is the spring that I'm going to adapt. And I have another one. This is from a Zorky 3. This one is long. This one is another option, but I'm going to use the one from the Zorky 4 because I have a shitload of Zorky 4s and I'm not gonna cry about it. All right. So this is the one of the missing links, let's say. Next, I will also need to get this thing back. It should go in that hole, and this thing is actually a stopper screw for the ledge, so it will not allow the ledge to go any further than this, because right now it can go more than that. It can go all the way to that position, and it should be here. In order to do that, I will need to also cut a groove or shorten this bracket, because for some reason it's like 1 millimeter too long. All right, what else? I will also need to get 2 new screws, because this one is quite tired. This one is missing altogether and this one is missing altogether. So I'll need not 2 but 3 new screws that will get the shutter mounted to the top plate, and then I will need to shorten them flush to the top plate, label them like 1, 2, 3, and get them out and put them somewhere safe, because once this is painted, I really don't want to touch it anymore. So these screws need to be short, because the shutter crate will be held from the bottom like it should be, like this, but the tip of the screw should not protrude through the top plate, so that will be interesting. The downside of this is that those screws will keep the entire shutter assembly connected to the top plate by like 2 threads, because obviously the threaded part will be or is equal to the thickness of the top plate. Well, I guess it's the same as a normal one. The only difference is this will be missing. Okay, and obviously this bracket can't be seated if a screw is poking out here. I will also need to make sure that the rewind lever is actually working, because when I will have this thing on top, the rewind lever will only go up to here, so like 1 millimeter too short, because that screw was also a stopper for the rewind lever. Or was it? No, I think the top plate, the smaller one, was the stopper for the lever. Anyway, and another issue is the fact that this hole and this hole, they don't match. I will probably, I mean, I have two options. I could close this hole and leave it like that, only connected in these two screws plus the 4 on the front, or I could drill a new hole. So I would actually be moving this hole like here, close this one, thread both of these new holes, I mean the one in the top plate and the one in the shutter crate, and use that. And probably that's what I'm going to do. And this is another thing that I need to do before painting. All right. And the last problem that I noticed, the last two problems actually. So this one goes on top, and right now it's screwed all the way down. I don't want to force it, because since the bracket is not a complete circle, any small flex will make the threads slip. Okay, next problem is the fact that I have a gap here. That means I also have a slight curve in the top plate. So I'll need to address that until this fits and is flush. That shouldn't be much of an issue. But the other problem, the bigger problem, is this. Once I screw this on, it is so flush to this, to the bracket, that it actually slows down the shutter. And I can feel it rub against the dome. So I will need to figure a way, and you can see there's a faint mark where this rubbed against that. I need to figure a way to get some more space in between. So I can either grind this one down, but I have no way of doing it nicely because I don't have a lathe. That would be one option. I'm not really enthusiastic about it. The other option would be to actually flatten this. So take it off. Come on. Okay. Turn it around and rub it against some sanding paper. And that's what I'm going to probably do. Oh, and this is the issue. It's not only it's not completely round. It couldn't have been because of the latch that goes here. But it could have been like, no, it couldn't have been. It's the latch. But the mounting points are only this one and this one. And that's kind of sucky, because that means all of this part is actually able to flex. So if one of these two screws would have gone all the way through, that would have been, I think, a better choice. But probably it would have interfered with the shutter crate. And that's why it only has these two mounting points. So it is what it is. Um, I'll find a way to make it work. Okay, and that's basically it. I will remove the crate, fix this issue, because all of these parts will be painted, and then it's painting time, I suppose. I'll print a cheat sheet with all the information my good friend ChatGPT gave me about the paint, and yeah, that will be that. I'll be painting the parts during the next couple of days. It will probably take a fairly good amount of days because I want to follow the steps and allow the paint to cure at least partially between layers and so on. But yeah, it's starting to, I don't know, resemble a camera. And oh, and one more thing. For once I have two bottom plates. They are almost identical, except that this one also has these two holes that simply allow for the attachment of like a thing that I'm not really sure what it is, or what's the purpose of it. It's this thing that should go like this. I don't know, maybe it's a bracket, maybe it's meant to make it stronger, or maybe it rests against the shutter crate. No, it can't. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea what it is, but this is more consistent to the Leicas. I don't know about Leica 1, but Leica 3, for instance, has one of these brackets as well. So I think I'm going to use this one. Or maybe paint them both, and I will make some experiments on this one, although I have a third one somewhere around here that I kind of fucked up because I left it in acid for too long and all these aluminium inserts got busted. But this one will certainly be a test plate. I will paint it and then mark some areas, and then I will do a punishment test for each area, but for each area will represent a number of weeks or months of simply sitting after being painted. So this is lacquer paint, it takes a lot of time to fully cure. Or maybe I will do a test after 2 weeks, another after 4 weeks, after 6 weeks, after 8 weeks, and see how much stronger the paint gets, if it gets any stronger. I will probably, I don't know, maybe rub it with something like this. Maybe I will rub it with something like a strong and heavy canvas, like a bag, mimicking what would happen if you would use it for a long time in a photo bag, stuff like that. So kind of mimicking what a daily usage would do to a painted camera. Okay, so these are the bottom plates, and I also have the body shell. I've sandblasted this area, and this area. For the body shell, I will paint these areas with powder coating. So I will powder coat them because these are very susceptible to wear and tear. And this one, although in the real black painted cameras these are usually chipped and so on, but if you do this 2 times on a painted camera or on a repainted camera or on my repainted camera, that is gone. So I would rather have it powder coated because that is a lot stronger. It will wear eventually, but not so soon. This one fits nicer. This one fits not so nice. It has a bit of a wobble. This should be that one I can fix, but the wobble means it's a bit larger than the body shell. This one has no wobble and looks tight. So this one it is then. Okay, and yeah, what I would still need to figure out about this is whether or not the mounting holes for the accessory shoe are correct or not. This one will also be powder coated. So with this in place and this in place, a viewfinder should still have enough room to be attached. So if this is the viewfinder, oh my god, that's tight. I'm not going to force it in because then it's gonna be a shit show to get it out, but if I align it, this one works. Now the problem is that it should accept the viewfinder for the what's the name, not Orion, Rusar, the Rusar lens. That's what, 20 millimeters or something, and if that Rusar lens is any bigger than this, it will hit here and it won't allow it to be mounted. So I might need to actually, oh, what do you know, this one wouldn't fit either. Oh Jesus, that's like 0.5 millimeter. Anyway, I will probably need to move the holes more to like this side, and now I'm wondering maybe I could move them like this. This would be on the safe side. It will be a bit off center, but when you are shooting like 20 millimeters it really doesn't matter anymore. And then that means I could keep this hole, and I also need to see how these two holes align with the upper light shield, which is this one. So right now the upper upper light shield is aligned with those holes, and that means that if I move like this, I will only need to drill one hole through the top plate, one hole through the light shield, and obviously another hole the front one. But it would be something like this, and I think that's fairly decent. It gives you enough room to work the shutter speed selector. It gives you enough room to work the rewind knob, and it looks pretty damn well. It looks more balanced than something like this. But yeah, this one would be nice because it would be on axis with the lens. But 1 centimeter didn't kill anyone, right? Okay, I guess that's the list of small mods that I still need to do. And then it's paint time. Okay, I have bored you plenty tonight. So this will be it for this episode. Maybe the beginning of the next episode will be... No, I'll see. Either I'll be showing the mods on the unpainted parts, or I will just show you the painted parts and more or less the finished results. Okay, thank you. I'll see you next time. Cheers.